Let's do it. Ready to go.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Purpose with Purvis show. I'm Jacklyn Purvis, and I'm here with my dad, my mentor, my business partner, Jamie Purvis. We're the father-daughter coaching team and co-founders of the Be Do Have movement. Each week, we're going to be diving into real-life strategies, inspiring stories to help you dream big, find your purpose, and take actionable steps towards living the life you've always wanted. We're excited to dive in this week. Today, we are talking all things purpose-related, how we live with intention, how purpose is showing up for us this week with some challenges that we've run into, some situations we've run into, in hopes that it can help you too, because I know that we're not alone in going through this.
It's been an awesome week in many ways, and it's been a growth week as well.
Tell
It's
me
been a
more.
growth week. Yeah, I've been feeling it's almost like I'm chasing shiny objects right now. And I'm working on LinkedIn, trying to figure out the best practices, best way to do things. And I've oversubscribed to all kinds of emails, and all this is coming, and I'm reading it all, and I felt stuck and overwhelmed this week, and literally was breaking down. I really felt this week like it was just overwhelming to the point where I was stuck, and just had a hard time getting focused to do anything. And I know we talked about that a little bit, and just realizing how in the moment I didn't know, I knew I was in this place, but I couldn't get out of it. It's also the value of having a mentor or partner or coach, somebody that sees things from the outside that's not necessarily attached to what you're going through, but can give that guidance. And you were able to just, stop me and cause me to think, cause me to breathe. And then you gave me directions, which was awesome.
And I think it can cause spiraling, right? Like we all go through this. So when stuck and overwhelm happens, because that's sort of like the term that we'll all say immediately, right? Like I'm stuck. But what's actually happening when you were stuck there? Like what were you feeling at that point?
Paralyzed.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed more, and just gathering information. And that's not my behavioral style. That's not my personality. I rarely gather that information, but I was in this space because I wanted to do it right. I wanted to establish everything, get everything set up once and do it right. And as a result of that, I just kept getting different opinions on what to do. So then I was duplicating work, and then my focus came off of the business and reaching out and speaking to clients, and I'm just in this space. And even thinking back, it was probably about a week to 10 days that I've been in this space right now. Your guidance and just calling me out on it, me first of all sharing it and just telling you like I'm just feeling this, and then you being able to sit there and say, okay, breathe. And then you just followed up and gave me a few things to do, which was very powerful for me because I was able to then just shift my focus.
And you said a few things there that I want to break down. And I knew you were in that state and I knew you were past the state of overwhelm, basically, of like blockedness. Jamie works really well, his personality type from a visionary perspective. So I know he doesn't work well when it comes to getting into systems, figuring out how things work. It's just not his personality. My brain loves it. Like I'm like, let me figure it out and sit in this and work the system or set it up. Like I enjoy doing that if I have the space and time. And I know your personality style doesn't. And he's been managing a task right now with LinkedIn and some systems and outreach and different things that you can do with this great platform. And I haven't been participating in that. So I knew that you stepping into that, not that I was expecting it to cause friction or anything, but I could understand how that would be frustrating for you.
It was so overwhelming, and I'm just not used to that because I don't get into that place too often. And I just felt like I couldn't get out of it. And then I just kept, digging a hole deeper. It's like you're looking at the surface and you got to get out, but then you turn around and you just, okay, I'm going to dig another foot. And then it was a deep hole. We coach our clients through this as
Yeah.
well. And I think that's the eye-opening experience for me. So, this is what you and I do all the time for other people, yet we need somebody ourselves to help us when we're in it because I don't have it all figured out, and it's easy for me to get caught up and overwhelmed and the pressures of the market and like everything everybody's sharing with us, like we're feeling it too, right? We're feeling and sometimes compounded what people share because you hear it enough over time, it sort of just weighs you down. So being able to release it is something I'm generally very good at, and compartmentalizing my emotions and just being able to deal with things. And it was, yeah, it was not a good place to be.
It's paralyzing in a sense. Your brain doesn't know what to do. You're in this gathering state, and we get into gathering when we're almost frantically searching for what to do next. And we've all been there. And I wanted to start today with talking about this because I see a lot of coaches online, and no shame to what everyone's sharing by any means or anything like that, but we're not necessarily talking about the days where you get blocked and when you don't know what you're doing next and it is overwhelming. And we went through that this week and how vital it was to have a sounding board to go back to. And I do that just as much with Jamie. This was just the situation this week for sure. But knowing when to be vulnerable about something and open and honest, and then take steps forward for yourself, because you also took the next steps and what you needed to do to release that, right?
Is literally just giving myself space, like putting everything in a pile on my desk. It's still there. I just piled up everything and it's sitting there. And that created more freedom around me. And then I started thinking, okay, I need to just calm myself down. You recommended the peace process that we go through. And ironically, we had just taken a group of our clients through this peace process. And it allowed me to just be present and notice my feelings and where things were showing up for me in my body, and just getting calm and letting go and getting out of that scarcity, that judgment. And it just piled. Like it was just interesting because I'm probably one of the most optimistic people I know. Like I'm always looking at the sunshine and it's always great and I can find ways. But I got into that space and it was, yeah, it wasn't, it just felt heavy. It's affecting my sleep.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was uncharted water, I think, for myself. And it's easy to always, you know, being online when we're talking to clients, we can help them through it and see it all the time. But for this period of time right now, I was in it. And yeah, you really helped me come through that. And now I value, how a client must feel when they go through it and break free from it, because it just allows you to breathe again. The heaviness that was there is just dissipated.
It's interesting because if you sit in a state like that for too long, it almost becomes a story. And the more you're telling yourself that story, the deeper that identity becomes until all of a sudden this is how you're operating. And this ties into we have a program called the Repeatable Revenue Roadmap. It's specifically for realtors. And during one of our sessions this week, a topic that came up, we were teaching on the element of leadership, and a topic that came up is the stories that we tell ourselves. And the really cool part is when you're getting mentorship or you're in a program like this, you're with other people that can help be that mirror for you, because we can't always see that in ourselves, right? Like you shared that today, Jamie, with your story as well. And we were able to see with the situations that our members were going through that they were repeating things they no longer wanted. They were describing themselves in a certain way that wasn't how they wanted to be, but it was almost a reason for why they were the way that they were. Really reminded me, Jamie, with what you went through this week as well, because if you didn't stop and snap out of that, you could have now carried that forward. It's I'm someone that's no longer good at this. And it was a really quick check, right? Where we could reframe that and let go of that, which is great. However, I've been through situations too where you're repeating a story you don't want to have anymore. Like in my situation with that was more so around anxiety. That was something I was diagnosed with in 2020. And at the beginning, it was almost how I would describe my personality type. Like I'm someone that's an anxious person in the situation. And by repeating something you don't want, it's a language pattern. And I was reinforcing something that I didn't want to describe myself, number one, and I didn't want to operate from that point. And I was subconsciously doing that.
A lot of times you're not aware you're doing it. So awareness is the first step, right? Because it is the story. And like you'll say, for example, I'm always late. Like, people,
Hmm.
you hear it when people are talking, right? When you become aware of it, you hear what people say and the stories that they say to themselves. Like, I'm always late, or, I don't like this type of person, or I'm this, or I'm that, whatever it is, you define it. But when you can catch yourself saying it, that's the first step. Then it's releasing it and flipping it to what you do want. And I think that's very difficult to do without outside support, because it's embedded in what we say. And then you don't even know you're saying it, but you say it all the time. For example, with realtors, a lot of times, I'm not good at making listings, or I don't like working with buyers, or whatever it might be. And then they just keep reinforcing that, so that when they do find a buyer, they're saying, I don't like buyers. And then they find a buyer, and then the buyer doesn't work with them, or the deals are really hard, and they can't connect the two because we have this subconscious belief. And then when the experience shows up, it's that thinking below the surface that actually causes the result to repeat itself, which is maybe the buyers don't buy, or they're not motivated, or they're always hard, or I take listings, but they don't sell, and whatever that might be.
We've seen that too in other situations, right? So our clients that we support are service providers, that can stem from real estate agents, mortgage brokers, small business owners. It's an array of people in that space, right? So we've even seen that through our membership with people that are speakers in that space or authors. And it can come to a point where it's, I'm not good at speaking, or I'm too shy to do this. My personality doesn't work with this. And we're giving these absolute answers that, by the way, they're not true. They're not true, and they don't have to be true anymore, but it does take catching it, releasing it, and replacing it with who you wanna be moving forward.
You just said something there, I am, and then you had a definition behind that, or an explanation, or a statement. And to even become aware of that, if we think of ourselves in a work environment, and then think of work, and then create a statement around work. I am this type of person at work. And whatever that shows up as, that is the story. That's the identity that we tend to have and we live by every single day while we're in that environment. And this happens whether it's work, whether it's personal, whether it's friendship, whether it's family. Like, we're multifaceted, and all these relationships are happening. And often we have different identities within the relationships, but we have stories that are created that we just keep living over and over and staying stuck.
Let's break that down. Or what should we start looking for in our existing stories that could potentially help us change into the person that we actually wanna be?
I think if you look at your results that you have right now in life, and if it's sales, income, any form of business that you're in, whatever results you have, relationships, there's a story that's led to you living that experience. So if you're happy with that result and everything's wonderful, amazing, then it's okay. There's nothing to change, unless maybe you want to make it better, and then you can create a new story to make it better. If the result isn't what you want, for example, sales are down, it's been a tough year. Um, I had a realtor recently say, 21 years in real estate, and this is their worst year ever. And I'm sure that wasn't the first person they shared that with this year. I'm sure that story was multiple conversations. And the more we say it, the longer the year goes, we reinforce it. So to be aware of that, first of all, is I think it takes somebody outside to point it out, or you have to really make a decision where you say, you know what, I'm going to change this. And it's that self-awareness to be able to pick up on it and create a shift and a change in our thinking, in our patterns.
And that is tough to do as well, especially when you're in a stressful state. Like, things are really simple to implement when your energy is great, you're sleeping well, everything feels good, money's flowing in, the sales are no problem. It's a totally other story though when shit's hitting the fan and you're stressed and it just feels like everything's out of control. And that tends to be when old programmings or old habits and old identities and ways that we don't necessarily want to operate start creeping their head in.
They're there all the time. Like you just said it, right? They're always there, but when everything's wonderful, we don't think about it, we don't feel it, we don't experience it. But when things get tougher, it starts to show up. And what do you do when it's showing up? Right? The story often gets repeated and then blown up and expanded on. And then it's funny because then we look for reasons to justify it, right? The market's down, or interest rates are up, or other agents are having a tough year. And then we find, we join forces and we find this support because it's these other things. Whereas the reality is, we have clients that are also having their best year ever in this same environment. So there's two dichotomies going on to the same situation in the market. And what's causing that different result? Well, it goes back to the person and their identity and the story they're creating, right? Like, you can look at this market and interest rates are up, great time to buy. There's no pressure. You buy now. And when rates come down, it's so much more affordable. But if you're not thinking that this is an opportunity market and this is a challenging market, well, then everything you're going to see, your perspective is all going to be focused on what makes this a challenging market. And that becomes the story.
And that's the same thing from an economic standpoint right now, right? For people that aren't in real estate specific, we're seeing this across the board with sales.
Not officially in a recession.
They
And by the
changed the
time they announce it, we'll be out of it. So the governments have basically now around the world are starting to reduce and lower interest rates. And that is going to transcend into the economy changing, getting better as the rates come down, people start to feel better. And now that outside condition impacts the way they think and respond to things. And then after a period of time, good news will start to come out of that. Sales are going up, the economy's better, people loosen up, and we just basically work ourselves out of out of the situation we're in into a new experience.
This might not be as much of a hit as well if you're not running your own business in a sense, because there is that stability there. But yes, we are seeing this as a common factor across the board with all of our members almost. Like everyone's getting affected by this, right? So it's a real and honest approach to being able to look at yourself, look at what you're telling yourself, look at what thoughts are constantly repeating in your brain, and start to pay attention to what is and isn't serving you. Just starting to even listen to what you're saying and paying attention to the words coming out of your mouth and the language that we're using, right? Like, we taught this in one of our modules recently, and it was all about language patterns and programming and how powerful our words are, and getting extremely intentional and having purpose with what's coming out of our mouth, and noticing again, because that's how we're catching our story here, is when we are saying I am or I have, and it isn't something that's empowering. It isn't something that you want to have anymore. I want to share that it can change starting today. You don't have to continue with an identity that you don't love anymore. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to change for you overnight, but change can happen that quickly as long as you're making the decision around it.
Decide that you're going to make a change. Decide you want a different outcome. Everything starts with a decision. And the minute we make a conscious decision and start to move forward, you start to look for a new experience, new events. Other people are going to start to show up in your life that literally will pull you in the direction of that new goal or new vision you set for yourself because you've made that decision. Indecision is also a decision, which sometimes we don't realize. So we often don't make decisions without full integrity, without full focus, because we don't have clarity or we're feeling stuck like I was. And then we make maybe the wrong decisions, or we make decisions where we tend to lean into a different direction. We tend to wait. We tend to procrastinate. We want things to get better before we move forward. Like, all these things are decisions that are made based on what's going on in our mind at that point. Living on purpose, I love this concept because when you get clear that your goal is to become the best you can be every day, as an example. If that is my intention when I wake up, and the first thing I think about is I am powerful, I'm excited, I'm on fire. Like, this is an incredible market, incredible opportunity. The economy is incredibly set up for me to have my best year ever. You're going to have a different experience. And that thinking, that decision that gets made is the beginning of that journey to help us get unstuck. I find it so difficult when you're in that negativity, you're in scarcity, you're in overwhelm. As much as that might be who you are, you're not looking at those opportunities. So then we go back to I am having a bad year. I am this type of person. This always happens to me. Like those things are what people will say to themselves internally, but then they even verbalize it, which is now they're confirming that for other people.
Something I've started doing with that is because sometimes it's a struggle when you're saying an I am, I want to wake up and I'm happy today. Or I'm going to be successful at this, right? Sometimes it's hard to connect with that when you're feeling low. So, what I try to do as well in states like that is look at how I want to feel. So, I am calm is something I lean on no matter what, because that's something I can control immediately today. So, if you're ever feeling like things like affirmations, or declarations or mantras, right? Whatever you want to call it. If you ever feel like those things haven't worked for you, it may be the word that you're picking just needs to be something that you can connect to a little bit further than what it currently is. So, toying with that for yourself and what is the state that you want to feel every day? And states your current energy level, it's your mood, it's the qualities that you want to have, the characteristics you want to have, and making it so specific to you and your life and what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. And truly tapping into, again, what's the story that you're currently telling yourself? And based on where you want to go in your life, what kind of qualities do you want to have to get to that next point?
Interesting thing is we can create this little mini movie in our mind through visualization. So you can literally start to visualize what you want, close your eyes, create the movie of your experience and using your imagination. And that's the beautiful part. So it doesn't matter what's actually going on in your life. It's maybe not where you want it to be, but we can close our eyes and we can create a mental movie, a mental picture of what we want. And that becomes your new identity. So you can turn your current situation into a much better situation by closing your eyes and just imagining and asking yourself, like, what if I could create anything I wanted? How would I want my business to look? And then, like you said, Jacqueline, you go back to the feelings, like close your eyes and feel that experience. Use your senses. Like, where are you? What are you feeling? What do you smell? Like use your sensory factors in that mental movie. And this can all be done in a matter of 5 minutes. And that's enough. Like it just gets you out of state. It changes your state. And that can be such a powerful exercise in the morning and at night before you go to bed.
It is that embodiment of practice of these tools. So, throughout this, we're going to share some tools and some help and some resources and tips of free tools essentially that we have available. So, what I'll make sure to stick as well in the description here is what you mentioned at the beginning, which was the peace process. This is a fabulous tool if you are feeling overwhelmed and that stuckness, that paralyzed feeling that Jamie was describing. It's essentially allowing yourself to feel through that emotion you no longer want to have and release it. It's a 20-minute exercise. You can do it anywhere you're at. It's listed on our YouTube channel, so it's quick and efficient. And that's exactly what you went through with this.
I wasn't totally through it at the end of the 20 minutes, but I was 80% better. And then it gave me time to do it again. So I've done it a couple times this week, and like you had mentioned, it's just this calmness that comes over you, that mindfulness. So it's the awareness that comes from it. I'm listening to a podcast, and then the podcast finished, and then I was just thinking. I was just letting the thoughts flow. And this idea came to me that your current biggest challenge is your transformational opportunity. So whatever challenge you're going through, and then I associated that back to what is happening in our world and our business right now, and then seeing that, okay, in that is the biggest transformational opportunity for us to grow. So becoming different people, business owners, as we go through this, finding a new way, finding a new direction. I just value coaching. I just me coaching helps me get me where I want to go quicker, or we just keep doing it and trying to figure it out, which is exhausting after a while. So you get to a point where, okay, I'm ready to get to that next level. So let's go do it.
A few people that you've had to come through as members of your one-on-one program, right? So something that one of your previous clients coined, which I absolutely love, is that working with you is essentially like therapy for their business. So it's helping people what we just shared and what we're also going through, but break through the blocks of where you're currently at. And you're incredible at this in your one-on-one space because of all the years of experience you've had in the real estate industry. So it's extremely impactful for real estate agents that know that they are hitting that ceiling. They know that they are facing that block. And I should even say service-based businesses, right? Because you've had business owners in there as well. So you're really strong at helping people get the clarity of what they want in the first place. We've talked about that a few times on this call, and I firmly believe that's one of the most challenging elements of this. We don't know what we want. Many of us go through the world of like, well, figure it out as we go, not necessarily having that goal, that dream, the direction. And that's a huge portion of what's involved in coaching is what could your ideal space look like? And then you guide people on figuring out a plan to move forward with that. Of course, we have a system in place and a framework that helps you get there. And tell me a little bit more about that because we're celebrating your 60th until the end of September here.
Yes, that's hard to believe.
He's like, "Are we?"
I hear you say it. It's a number. I'm not sure what 60 is supposed to feel like. I don't feel 60. Uh, but the birth certificate doesn't lie. So very grateful for a lot of experiences, coaches, clients we've had over the years. And we wanted to just extend an opportunity to give back and help as many people as possible. So we've opened up an opportunity for anybody that wants to work with me one-on-one for a 6-month or 12-month period. We've opened up an opportunity until the end of September, whereby we're offering a 50% savings for doing that.
On today's podcast, it was all about we're facing some struggles and the economy's taking a hit, the market's been taking a hit. So let's be real and honest that you have also spoken to quite a few people that they need that extra support and finances aren't necessarily flowing in the same way they were 2 years ago. So we're really excited to share this with our community as well because I think it's a fantastic opportunity if you are in that space of kind of feeling paralyzed and hitting your head on a wall a little bit when it comes to your business, it's extremely helpful to get that outside support. Definitely helps to have somebody. I don't even like the word accountability all the time because that makes it feel icky. You know
Well,
what
it's
I
heavy,
mean?
right? When you're accountable, it's like, oh, pressure. That's what
Yes.
accountability does. It causes pressure. Yeah, but I think I was under more pressure with all the stuff that was bothering me, where I was feeling stuck versus not in that situation yet having the accountability with you. And I think great accountability isn't somebody that's going to say like, why didn't you do this? Like the parent, right? Like, why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Accountability is somebody that's just going to ask questions, right? And just, hey, what's going on? Like, where are you feeling stuck? And just that curiosity, that in itself is accountability. And nobody, I always feel nobody's going to keep me accountable more than me. So me being in a good, comfortable, calm state and committing to things I say I'm going to do, I'll hold myself accountable to that. And especially if I know somebody's going to ask me, how did it go? And that's literally what accountability is. It's just like somebody checking in to making sure you're doing what you say you're going to do.
And the key here is also finding someone that your personality matches. Like, we're not the type of coaches that are going to sit there and yell at you. There's plenty in the space that do. And if that's what you're looking for, definitely search elsewhere. That is not our personality style whatsoever. We thoroughly believe in helping to ask the right questions. So it is like therapy for your business. You're getting that support. We're obviously not therapists. I need to be 100% clear on that. That is not our avenue,
Correct.
but it
Correct.
it is helping you change as a person to get to that next level in your business.
There, I'm going to leave you with 4 questions that I believe help everybody, helps me. Every coaching conversation can be attached to these 4 questions.
Let's do
So the
it.
first question is what do you want? What do you want to achieve? Like whatever is driving you in your life, in your business as a realtor, asking a potential client, like, what's your expectation out of the experience? What do you want to net out of this property? Like asking a what-based question. What? How? Secondly, following up with how. How do you see yourself achieving that? How are you going to go from here to there? What steps do you need to take? What, how, who? Who's going to help you along the way? Who's in your corner? And then ultimately, when? When do you want to get there? When do you want to start? So what, how, who, when, those four questions, we could literally give ourselves self-guidance and leadership by asking ourselves those four questions based on what we're doing on a daily basis in business.
And that was our goal today, right? Our purpose and our intention with today's session was to be open and vulnerable about some shit that we're going through, because we are definitely not alone in that. And just to share that you're not alone either. There's tools that you can use. We'll definitely include the peace process with this as well, in addition to the book a call link with Jamie. So thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would love if you could like and subscribe. If you do subscribe, you get first access to every single episode every single week.